Welcome to First Reviews. I'm Gal Balaban, here sitting with Ruairí O'Brien, the cinematographer of Eternity, directed by David Freyne. In this movie, this is a movie set in an afterlife where souls have 1 week to decide where and with whom to spend eternity. And Joan, played by Elizabeth Olsen, is faced with a terrifying dilemma between her two loves, played by Callum Turner and Miles Teller. Rory, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. I'm speaking to you from Budapest, which is a beautiful city.
Wonderful. And we spoke a little bit before we started recording, and I'm really excited about what you're working on next. So, Eternity, this film I was lucky enough to catch at the Toronto International Film Festival, where you guys made your world premiere. And I was just hearing from everyone who I was asking throughout the week, like, what movie have you enjoyed the most? So many of them responded with Eternity. First of all, what was the reception like? Like, were you I'm sure you were confident people would enjoy it as warmly as they have.
Yeah, it was great to screen it in Toronto. That theater, I forget the name of it, this huge 2,000 seater it is. It was a stunning place to see the film, and the crowd really got behind it. There's nothing like seeing a film with an audience, and this is a real kind of crowd pleasing film. So it was great. It was, nice payback for all the hard work.
And I think like one great thing about watching a movie with a crowd is, the laughs, the emotion. That's what make the movies that we want to rewatch throughout our lives. What were some of the earliest movies that you would rewatch time and time again, either when you were growing up or now? What are some that you go back to and watch like
Well,
however many times?
I was part of the Star Wars generation, so like Star
Nice.
Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, and back then there was no way to rewatch stuff. We didn't have a VHS player, so you just saw it. Maybe you saw it again on TV a year later, and you kind of memorized it. So I think I watched Star Wars more in my head than anywhere else. Um, yeah, so that was like basically I'm part of that generation that just grew up on Star Wars.
Would you say that was the one that influenced you to want to make movies?
Kind of. My dad was an actor, my mother was an artist, and I was basically not quite a high school dropout, but I didn't exactly ace my exams. And I sort of fell into doing this. And it just, when I hit it, it just seemed like the natural place for me to be. It was like I wandered into this perfect position.
Well, I feel like this movie blends so many different genres. I mean, romantic comedy, fantasy, sci-fi. Like, which of the genre aspects or what from this high concept idea excited you the most when you came on to this idea?
When I read it, I just thought it was a really moving script. David's previous film that I shot with him, Dating Amber, had the same thing. It just really tugged at your heartstrings. And this did the exact same thing. It was very emotional. And also, it was very like the films of Billy Wilder. The Apartment is one of my
Mm.
favorite films. And I read it and I said to him, this is like a Billy Wilder film. He was like, yeah, you get it. That's exactly where we're going with this thing. So, as soon as I read the script, I just knew there was something special in it.
I totally get what you're saying. It's almost like Some Like It Hot or The Apartment if it was in color in a way for our generation. Speaking of which, the production design is stunning. There's something so literally otherworldly about it. How did it feel, first of all, working on such a larger scale project than your previous works?
Well, it's funny because, the production design is, our designers, Azu Myers, did an amazing job. But if you look at the film, it's very low on VFX. So,
Mhm.
we're so used to spectacle being created by all this kind of VFX work, and we really didn't rely on that. And the spectacle is real mountains and real forests and a real beach,
Mhm.
as well as this set. But it's interesting. You realize the real world is spectacular and visually arresting if you just, stand back and look at it. And then, like I said, our designers, Azu, did an amazing job of building the junction. She built us some beautiful sets. I think the bar set is just, it's very understated, but it's perfect for what we were doing. So yeah, I take my hat off to her. She did an amazing job.
How long did the lobby of the afterlife take to build?
I don't know exactly how long, but I think it was pretty close to the wire.
Mhm.
And actually, it's based on, there's a library in Toronto. Um, I forget the name of it, but I think it's right on, is it Dundas? And anyway, it's yeah, there's I forget the famous library in Toronto, but that was one of the inspirations for it. So
Mhm.
you might know if you're Torontonian. Um, and yeah, there was a lot of work went into designing that. There was a lot of, we designed it, and turns out building something that big is not cheap. So we had to kind of rationalize and rethink and, reduce things. But I think it paid off in the end.
I think one thing I love about how the look of this movie really embraces retrofuturism, which isn't something that we see as much of. I mean, I made the comparison in my head of like WandaVision, which also stars the wonderful Elizabeth
Mhm.
Olsen. Um, but as we said, most of it's practical, right? Like there's these cute backdrops behind the windows. Like that's all practical. That
Yeah,
wasn't green screen, correct?
all practical. There's a shot of one of them being painted in the film, and yeah, you see them being changed during the movie. Yeah, just beautiful old backdrop drapes. And in fact, I think Zazu's uncle painted some of them, um, or did one of the paintings. So yeah, it really felt like a kind of a family affair, a lot of
Mhm.
it. But yeah, it was a very grounded feeling in making the movie. Again, we weren't leaning too heavily on VFX. I mean, there is VFX work in there. A company called Niche from Vancouver did it, and their work I think is great. And part of what's so good about it is it's really unnoticeable. I think all the best work in filmmaking should feel effortless. You shouldn't really be aware of the craft. I think those niche guys did a great job of that.
Absolutely. When you're working with David, what's sort of the first thing that you're doing when an image pops into your head when you're reading the script? Are you storyboarding? How exactly does it work with you?
We didn't really storyboard very much of this. So we read the script, and the initial meeting we had was it wasn't even about visuals, it's just the tone of the story, which again, like I said, was Billy Wilder. We both kind of locked into that sort of world and that story tone. That and Albert Brooks was another big influence of his. And after that, we started looking at sort of the visual tone. But in terms of storyboarding, we only storyboarded the archive tunnels where people go to see their memories.
Okay.
And a lot of that was because we only could build a tiny bit of it. And then the VFX guys had to extend it.
Hmm.
And we had to take costumes off actors and put them on stand-ins. And you can't do that on the same day because they have to be dry cleaned. So we storyboarded more for logistics than anything else. Um, but David has a really simple way of shooting. He just likes to, it's very much point the camera at the story. So we weren't doing huge, flashy work. If anything, it's the opposite of that. So we didn't need a huge amount of storyboarding. We sort of knew what we were going for.
I think the archive scenes are some of the most beautiful, and I love that you keep coming back. You have almost like um this montage, not really a montage because it is set in real time, but from an archive perspective, it's like a montage, but they're watching it in real time of the wonderful moments throughout their life. And then you come back to that a few times. Can you talk about the light and the colors in the settings within the archive?
Yeah, you're right. It is like a montage of your life. You go back and you watch these memories as the highlights of your life.
It's like
And we
the
decided
it's like
kind of
that
a
married
theatrical,
life montage in Up almost, if you remember that.
exactly, yeah. And we wanted it to be theatrical because it presents like, so we basically lit it with old tungsten lights so it would feel like a theater. So it feels a little bit different to everything else, but it sort of worked for us.
Absolutely. And how do you f feel about approaching like visual comedy as a DP? You work with so many uh, comedically talented actors. Miles Teller's been in plenty of funny things. He's hilarious here. Davine Joy Randolph is brilliant, and her dynamic here with John Early was like a fan favorite thing. Their pairing, and they're like clashing sometimes, but they're also sort of like get together to try and get everything to work out.
Yeah, I mean, I really love shooting comedy. My career, I've done sort of bits of everything. I've done really dark stuff and I've done, yeah, documentaries, whatever. And comedy, there's nothing like going to work and laughing. It's just a really wonderful way to spend your day. And very often you just sort of stand back, frame it nicely. And the trick is, it's an old thing. They say comedy plays in the wide shot. And it's more just about what you want to see is the action and the reaction at the same time very often. So like two shots are great for that. So as a DP, you just kind of frame them nicely, light them and let them
Mhm.
go at it.
Speaking of reacting, how much of like working on, like you said, you shot on location
Mhm.
for much of like the scenes within the eternities. How much
Yeah.
of that was natural light? How much of that was like it seemed like it might have been mostly natural light.
I'm glad you think so. It means we did a good job.
That
Yeah, I
means, yeah,
think
exactly.
I think, yeah, pretty much the exterior stuff was all, mostly natural light. We might have, put something over the top to keep hard light off them. Um, Done a little bit of modifying the light, but really not a huge amount of electrical light blasting them in the faces because, they don't need it. Again, when I was trying to make the whole thing, I didn't want it to be too glossy, I didn't want this to turn into like a shampoo commercial or a Marvel film. I wanted it to be a bit more sort of just simple and old school.
Yeah, it definitely felt like there was this warmth when they were in like the cabin.
Mm.
So like you said about reacting, how much of your work, how much of filmmaking is about problem solving and coming up with solutions on the day?
It's all problem solving. That's all it is. Basically, someone goes, "Here's a pile of money, turn it into a piece of art or a piece of commerce." But along the way, there's just like a conveyor belt of problems, and it's
Hmm.
your job to keep solving the problems. And if you like solving problems, it's a great job. Uh, if you don't like solving problems, then just paint pictures because you're solving problems under time pressure. But that's really stimulating. It's really rewarding.
Absolutely. So you shot the Arri Alexa 35 in this movie,
Mhm.
correct? So for our audience who are not as familiar or who are not necessarily DPs, can you talk about what were the benefits of shooting on this camera? What were some of the differences between the cameras you've worked with throughout your career?
These days they don't really make bad cameras. Um, like it's like so many things in the world. Like the standard of everything is kind of amazing, whether it's I don't know, cameras, cars, guitars, whatever you buy, fresh fruit, it's all great. Um, so for me, it's just a matter of reliability. I like how skin looks when you shoot with this camera. Um, yeah, it's just super reliable. It'll see in the dark. It'll hold bright highlights. It just gives nice pictures and it's super, super reliable.
By the way, did you guys shoot in sequence on this film?
No, I mean shooting in sequence is kind of impossible. I know we didn't have
Yeah.
Miles and Callum for the first few days. So we had Lizzie for the whole run of it. Then Miles and Callum both left early, Lizzie for the last week. So it's just with people's schedules and with trying to schedule around locations and all that kind of thing, it's just not possible.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And particularly if
Um,
you're going to revisit a place a couple of times during the movie, you're not
yeah.
going to like there for a half a day and go off and come back. You shoot everything out.
So what was the first scene that you guys shot in the film?
The first thing we shot was actually some of the commercials for different afterlives.
Right.
It was funny because we shot on like a really beaten up old video camera, and we had a crew of I don't know like 100 people standing around all going, "We're filming on that." I think people's jaws were kind of hanging slack when they saw it, and what we were shooting was so goofy. It was kind of nice fun for people. And the exact same thing happened in our previous film. We shot kind of a TV insert of a nun. I remember our producer going, "That's our camera." So yeah, it's nice to start off shooting the cheapest, most low rent, unimpressive stuff.
That must be, like you said, like the best kind of days at work is where just like things are unbelievably goofy and you're all sharing in that.
Yeah, it was great. And it was really low pressure stuff. We didn't have the main actors there. We were just
Mhm.
kind of all the crew getting to know one another and finding our feet. So it was a great way to start. And then, next day we were kind of into it properly and yeah, getting stuck in with Lizzie and Callum.
By the way, do you have from all the different eternities in the film, do you have a favorite or did you ever think, maybe that's what I would consider if I ever wound up in this situation?
I I think they made the right choice, the simple life one, because what you realize ultimately is that no matter what you pick, it'll drive you crazy in the end.
Hmm.
Like maybe living
Eternity's a
forever
long
is a
time.
terrible idea.
I think, yeah, just a cute little house. As long as you have like YouTube, Wi-Fi, HBO Max, Netflix, then you're set.
Yeah.
As long as you all have all the same content, when you're in the afterlife.
Yeah, but I think the idea is that after a while, anything will drive you insane. We talked about it a lot. We were all like, I just want to die. And when I die, I want to be dead. I don't want to live forever. You would go mad, like.
I feel like there's so many movies now, like around that concept of like, is it even worth it to live forever? And what's this pursuit of immortality? So
Exactly.
we've talked about your favorite, possibly eternity in the film. Do you have a favorite scene in the movie? First, which one was your favorite to shoot?
God, my favorite to shoot. I really enjoyed the scenes in the bar. Um,
Oh, wonderful.
that second last scene was great. And yeah, you
Hmm.
know what? I enjoyed every day at work. I'm the kind of, when I'm shooting a film, if it's going well, when the weekend comes and everyone's off, I'm the person going, I want to go to work. I want to go to work. I'm going to go back to work. Every day was enjoyable. I loved all the stuff up the mountains. Um, yeah, it was kind of funny. There's a scene in a cable car. So we had four actors in the cable car, and there was all this talk about how are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? And I was like, well, we'll just get in the cable car. And, you're not going to fit the whole crew in there. I was like, we don't need the whole crew. So it's myself, the director, and the actors, and then the camera assistant focusing and the sound recordist. I think we're in the next cable car, just remotely controlling everything. And like we knew the cable car ride was 8 minutes. Like, right, we got 8 minutes to shoot this scene. That was it. Up we go, done. And I really enjoyed the kind of the low rent spontaneity of that, just get stuck in and do it.
Speaking of which, on a film like this, how often are you the one operating the camera versus how much is it someone else?
On this show, I think I did two shots.
Okay.
Um, just, it's a big show. I wanted to be able to concentrate on the bigger picture and lighting it and just making sure the actors looked great and staying on schedule, all that kind of stuff. So we got
Hmm.
a great camera operator called Steve Krasny, who's based
Yeah.
in Vancouver, and he was just brilliant. I had a great team on this, um, and yeah, they pulled me through. So I wasn't really operating the camera very much.
By the way, let's go back to the bar scenes for a sec. They're
Sure.
wonderfully done, and you have one with like Callum and Miles, and then one later with Miles and Lizzie, and they sort of mirror each other, but they're on different ends of the film. Did you shoot those scenes like back to back almost?
Pretty much, yeah. I think we did them over. I think we did like a half a day on one bit and a half a day on another bit or something. So we had, I guess, we had like four scenes there. So the first thing is, the two men meet, and it was great. We had a scene with Divine and Miles talking. It's great. It was just a really nice, simple set. It looked great. And again, we put a lot of time into just designing that. Seeing the designer, how many booths we have, where will the bar be, where's the door going to be. So once you have all that input, you can really just make beautiful work. But once it's up and running, it was really the actors that make those scenes sing.
What about like what were the discussions around which kind of eras you wanted to encapsulate and pay tribute to?
Well, again, we were kind of going for that sort of 60s
Right.
comedy, Billy Wilder thing. I
Mhm.
thought the architecture of the junction would be a bit more like, I don't know, 19th century. You think of big cities, like Toronto, New York, they have all that kind of stone stuff. And then Zazu came up with something a bit more modern, and it was great. So um, it's kind of a little bit of a mishmash because the archive tunnels then feel a bit older. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on that. But the modern world, the world we live in, is like that. Nothing's all made from one period.
Hmm.
So
So
yeah,
especially when you have like a world like this where you're literally starting from scratch. Like this, obviously this place does not exist. So you can combine whatever you want from whichever corners you want.
exactly. Yeah, and we things like we shot in a real train station, so you don't have much control over that. It sort of is what it is. But fortunately, I mean, the biggest thing in the train station was the train, and it looked right for us. If it had been a more modern train, it would have been harder to pull it off. Um, so again, a lot of it's just about being selective in where you shoot and how
Mhm.
you shoot. We shot scenes on a beach, and we looked at every beach near Vancouver till we settled on this one. And when you watch the film, little do you realize, like when you're in Vancouver, you look out, there's just this sea is full of freight ships and oil tankers. And across the way is the city. And we were only, I don't know, 3 minutes walk from a big road. But you just have to be selective in what you shoot and how you shoot it. And then those things disappear.
How many good takes did you usually go for in this movie?
I don't know. I don't really can't. I mean, David has no problem going again and again till he gets the stuff, but we're working with really good actors who, you don't really
Yeah, of
get bad work. Um,
course.
I think Davine likes to have one or two takes just to feel her way into it. So I think the first couple of takes, she's never really putting herself all the way in, and then suddenly she lights up and everything takes off. I think Miles, Lizzie, and Callum will like just go for it from, you know, the first go out of the gate. But yeah, it's not like a Fincher film where you're doing 90 takes of anything.
Of course, yeah.
I
That's
think
wonderful.
I think that the second last scene, the big kind of romantic thing, we did maybe 7 or 8 takes of that. I don't think we
Okay.
did more than that of anything.
How long does like a big scene like that, or I guess the last cabin scene between Elizabeth and Callum, how long did that take to shoot?
I mean, that was a couple of hours, and again, a lot of it is just getting it ready, making sure it's all working, and then once we've got the scene worked out, you kind of go through it quickly. You don't want the actors to lose their energy or enthusiasm, so you don't want to do too many takes, and you don't want the light to change too much and all that kind of thing. So we probably shot that argument in maybe 3 hours.
Nice. So you've seen the movie. How many times have you like seen the finished final product since your big premiere now?
Well, I've seen it a lot along the way. So, we
Hmm.
shot it. Then I saw various versions of the cut. Then I saw it when we were grading it. So I spent 2 weeks in Vancouver coloring the film with a great colorist called David Tomiak. So I saw it for basically over and over for 2 weeks then. And then I saw various versions with different sounds, and there was all kinds of reasons to go back and check things. And then I've seen it in Toronto and I've seen it in London. So I've seen it
Yeah.
a lot, more than any other film I've ever seen.
Can you talk more about the process of coloring, by the way? Because I feel like that's one of the parts that's like made it so eye-popping and also resonated with so many people who have seen it.
Yeah, again, we were sort of designing the look, and we looked at The Graduate, which again is a film that both David and I sort of thought of independently as being an interesting reference. And it just has a really uh, rich colors and tones. And it was the film stock of the day sort of did that. Um, so we were kind of trying to emulate that film stock. So we met various colorists around town, and this guy, David Tomiak, just got what we wanted to do. And we designed a look and just shot with that. And then we spent a lot of time, like I said, 2 weeks coloring the whole thing. And that also means adding film grain and softening highlights and doing all kinds of halation and various bits and pieces. A lot of sort of very, very subtle work. But, cumulatively, each little piece adds to the final image.
Mhm. Is there maybe a line in the movie that like resonates with you the most?
My favorite line is a line that nobody hears, and it's my favorite line because I wrote it. Um, and it's David was doing something. He said, we got this medical thing. We want like medical heaven. And he just turned to me and said, give me a funny medical line. And I said, he's cardiacing real hard. He's like, okay, that's in the film. So I just like it because it's ridiculous. But the woman saying it has a mask over her face. It's barely there. Um, yeah, there are so many great lines in the film, though. Big week for Oakdale to me just cracks me up, which, doesn't mean anything until you see the film. Um, yeah, I think it's full of very smart, funny lines, and it's also full of there's a lot of humor in the set written on things, man, free world, bromance world, all those kind of things. It's a film full of Easter eggs. It's worth going back to just to look at all the things in the background.
Absolutely. Um, at the end of the movie, you sort of stylistically evolve into a bit of a claustrophobic thriller. Can you talk about the camera tricks that you embraced to make it feel like the setting was like closing in on Joan?
Yeah, I mean, we had this ending, and it was kind of crazy because the film is all one thing, and then it sort of briefly turns into this Michel Gondry-esque world where it's like reality starts to fold in on itself, and then Joan crawls under. She finds her older self dying in bed, and then she crawls under the bed to escape the police, and the bed starts to compress and crush her. And Dave kept describing this. We're all like, how are we going to do that? It's a really simple thing. I mean, we just built an oversized bed for her to crawl under and made sure it got lower and lower and lower, um, but not so low as to actually squash Elizabeth Olsen and, leaves with no actress. It was just one of the odd things to work out. It was kind of the thing that actually I found trickiest. It was the simplest thing to shoot, but the trickiest thing to work out what we were doing. Sometimes it's kind of hard to understand what's in a director's head. Um, so yeah, and for that we looked at there were two films that sort of influenced that. There's Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind by Michel Gondry,
Hmm.
and there's a great film called Vivarium by an Irish director called Lorcan
Ooh,
Finnegan.
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. His next film, The Surfer, is great as well. Um, but yeah, we kind of they were our jumping off points for that moment. But we really wanted the film to just have this thing of it. It's quite dark for. I guess it's only a short sequence, like maybe 2 minutes, but it really just, amps up the tension in the film in a very effective way.
And then you get to like exhale at the very end when things seem
Yeah.
to
Yeah, absolutely.
things seem to work out for them.
I think it's a big emotional payoff for the audience in the end. But this really helps, get everyone nice and tense before they get there.
Are there any Easter eggs that you enjoyed that didn't end up making the final cut?
No, I think, David is very smart about what's in the script and what isn't. There are no deleted scenes. Um, I don't think, he's not that kind of filmmaker. Everything is in the script for a reason, and therefore everything stays in the film. The only thing is when they go and meet Fenwick outside the archive tunnel, there was a board behind him and it had all the different versions of memories you could have. And it was like Schadenfreude and all kinds of stuff like that and dead pets.
Oh.
And the way we shot it, you don't really read that. And Dave was like, oh, I want people to be able to see that a bit more. So I think he misses that being in the film.
So we talked a little bit now about the influences. Are there any movies that you'd recommend audiences to do like a double feature with Eternity?
Yes, I would say David's previous film, Dating Amber, which is just a really amazing kind of it's sort of a gay coming of age story. It's like a romance where the guy doesn't get the girl, but that's all right. He didn't really need her anyway. Um, it's it's just great. It's a really it's an emotional kind of roller coaster, and it's also very very funny.
That's terrific. Well, one more thing I would definitely want to ask, as you know, going to work, I mean, everyone who is making films is also, like you growing up loving films. Are there any
Mhm.
movies or shows that you've recently seen that particularly excited or inspired or resonated with you in the last year or so?
Yeah, I thought Hamnet. I thought Jesse Buckley and Hamnet was kind of amazing. I really enjoyed Richard Linklater's Nouvelle Vague. They're the two that come to mind kind of most immediately. But I'm always
Yeah.
just consuming, consuming, consuming. Uh, Basically, I think before Christmas, in the 8 weeks before Christmas, I saw something like 40 movies, which is, for me, it's a lot. I normally don't have time to go to the cinema, so it was great. I just went to the movies. We were going 3 or 4 times a week. It was great.
That's terrific. Yeah, Hamnet's beautiful. Richard Linklater did two movies this year, which was super cool. He had
Yeah,
that
I
and he
think,
had Blue Moon.
yeah, I wasn't a fan of Blue Moon personally, but, I think Nouvelle Vague is kind of a superior piece of work. I also thought Anemone, the Daniel Day-Lewis and his son made a film, and that's kind of crazy. A lot of people don't like it. I think
I
there's
still
something
need to
really.
check that out.
Yeah, it's really unusual. I
Hmm.
know why people don't like it, but I was totally taken by it. I love any film that kind of does its own thing. I'm not really interested
Absolutely.
in sort of franchisey, sequely predictable films.
Well, I think Eternity absolutely does its own thing, and that's why it's stood out with people for since September now. Where can audiences now watch the movie?
I don't know if I guess it's probably finished in the theaters, but it's available to download if you are willing to pay the money. And I think it's going to appear on Apple as part of your Apple package anytime now, very soon.
Well, anyway, that's all the time we have. But Rory, thank you so much for joining us and talking about this great little film that's had such a big reception and following ever since it came out. So yeah, thanks again for all your time and insight.
Great. Thanks for having me on the show.